Hello, everybody. How are you? Good. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Hyun-Joo Lim. I'm a sociologist from Bournemouth University in the UK. Today, I'm going to talk about some of the challenges of creating a sustainable and humane future for North Korea. So that's the kind of research area I've been doing about especially human rights issues, in particular women's human rights issues faced by North Korean women. So what I'm going to do today is starting to explore some of the key ideologies of North Korea and the potential implications of such ideologies. And then we are moving on to sort of questions around the sustainability of North Korea. So in terms of implications, I'm going to talk about North Korea's military-first policy and also its implications on economic development and some of the stagnation, but also, importantly, the human rights implications. So I think in terms of, obviously, in relation to this conference, I think we need to think about, what is the sustainable and the humane future for all of us, and the story of North Korea fits into that sort of big jigsaw in a way. And then I'm going to end with some of the possible kind of proposals. It's based on my kind of belief that what would make successful or sustainable and humane future for North Korea. So North Korea, when it started, it was heavily influenced by Soviet Union. So that key ideology was, the founding ideology was Marxist-Leninism. However, when the founder of North Korea, Kim Il-sung, when he started to actually establish himself, he quickly developed its own ideology called 주체. So 주체 is a combination of a number of different kinds of ideologies and belief systems. So obviously, starting with the Marxist-Leninism, however, he also was heavily influenced by Chairman Mao in the 1940s and 50s. So there was a heavy influence on Maoism, but also coming from traditional sort of a Korean society where Confucianism, which was originated in China, but having had a very significant influence in Joseon Dynasty, was another important ideology. Especially when you look at North Korean society, there's a very strong deep-seated tradition around the patriarchy, which is coming from Confucianism. And the other aspect is, even though in reality in North Korea, religious freedom is not allowed, however, the founder of North Korea, Kim Il-sung's parents, were actually associated with the religious practice. They were Christians. So there was a strong influence of Christianity in terms of Kim Il-sung kind of ruling over North Korea. In many ways, some people argue that because he was kind of emulating those models, he was able to kind of successfully kind of establish North Korea as a sort of kind of single country. So 주체, in a simplest term, means self-reliance. So there is a very strong idea behind 주체 idea is establishing that independence as a nation. So there are sort of three different interrelated components which I'll talk about. But if you actually look at some of the ideological sort of origins of 주체 ideology, also you can see very strong anti-imperialistic sort of ideas, because the history of Korea has been always sort of riddled with the invasion of other countries. As you see now, the Korean peninsula is always sort of other country. It's small, but because of geographic location, a lot of other countries are very much interested in terms of maintaining our power dominance in the world. So that has really influenced as well. So these are the sort of three strands of Juche ideology. One of the key things is what we call 자주, which is political and ideological independence. When Kim Il-sung established Juche ideology, he wanted to be really independent politically and ideologically from Soviet Union and China. So you might find it quite interesting because obviously current North Korean state under the rule of Kim Jong-un, they are trying to establish very close working relations with Russia and China, but at the same time, they wanted to be kind of really independent from these countries. And the other thing is called 자립, which is economic independence. So North Korea has been always very kind of, sort of outspoken about wanting to maintain an economic independence from other countries. But ironically, it hasn't been the case. They've been always rely on other countries and World Food Program's support since 1995. And the third component is military independence. So these all three components are not separate. They are working together in order to aid North Korea to maintain independence from outside force. So I'm going to just talk about so-called Kim Il-sungism and Kim Jong-ilism. So this is when Kim Il-sungism is the idea that Kim Jong-il, so Kim Il-sung's son, Kim Jong-un's father, who named based on Juche, after Kim Il-sung died. When Kim Jong-un came into power in 2011, he basically established this blend of ideology based on his grandfather and his father's ideas. So as I talked about, Kim Il-sungism's key idea was Juche, trying to maintain that independence from outside force. Kim Jong-il's key ideology, Kim Jong-ilism, is military first, what we call 송건. So there is a strong emphasis on, their Korean Army's role. So if you look at actually KPA, Korean People's Army, their role extends not just the defense, but other aspects of North Korean life. So they become very important. What happened under the sort of reign of Kim Jong-un? He recognized real importance of economic development. So he made this shift from 송건, military first policy, to what he called 병진. So 병진 is a policy that actually trying to maintain the parallel development between military and the economy. Because rightly so, he realized that without economic kind of, sustainability and stability, they cannot maintain that sort of sovereignty of the country. However, so under the sort of 병진 policy, there have been various developments. There's trying to aim to improve the, living standards of people, but also there have been more focus on development of IT, communication technologies, and there has been an increase in mobile usage in North Korea, but also, IT sector has been developed quite well. However, the military first policy remains as still the dominant kind of approach in North Korea. Am I talking okay? Not too fast? Okay, good. If you're not clear, just ask me, it's fine. So just give you an idea about the scale of military. This isn't necessarily about the strength of North Korean military. This is more about the size of the army and their spending. So North Korea is world's fourth largest today army, So in terms of looking at the scale of personnel, military personnel, they've got about active with 1.3 million personnel, which is more than twice the size of South Koreans, which is just below about 600,000. And then you can add on to another more than 600,000 reserve army, but also the USA State Department estimated North Korea spends, on average about a quarter of its GDP on military. So it's a quite significant spending. I want to move on to now, focusing on human rights. So when we talk about human rights in North Korea, quite often people tend to think North Korea don't have human rights. Even those who came from North Korea, who I've been studying and interviewing, they said to me, when they were in North Korea, they never knew there was something called the human rights. They were not taught. However, they have an official version of human rights called our style human rights. So this is the kind of North Korea propose and to sort of propagate. And there are 4 components, as you can see. And there's sort of our style human rights. The key sort of message of our style human rights is the priority given to collective rights over individual rights. So individual freedom and liberty is, in a way, overlooked. So you can see the first one, the right to national survival. So national sovereignty becomes really important. Also, second one, they clearly justify the dictatorship. So, and then followed by, granted by the fatherly leader. So this is a sort of human rights directly related to 주체 ideology, which is what we call 수령 absolutism, supreme leader absolutism. So supreme leader has got absolute power. And then the fourth one is duty-based language. So rather than trying to give priorities to individual rights, actually it is focused more on whether individuals doing their duty in order to support a national survival. So you can see where it's heading to. So this is the quote from 노동신문, which is the Korean Workers' Party. It's an official newspaper. And it clearly, as you can see, we do not conceal or lie about our partiality. We do not obscure our class consciousness in the context of human rights. I cannot just read very well here, but I'll do that. Socialist human rights are not class-transcending human rights to grant freedom and human rights to hostile enemies who oppose socialism or to disobedient traitors who stand against the people's interest. Our human rights are the rights that legitimize the perspectives of enemies of the persecution of the enemies of the class, violating human rights of the people, workers, peasants, or intellectuals. So you can see the official newspaper that representing the state, Workers' Party, clearly states, actually, if there are anybody who are in the way of trying to preventing us pursuing our aim of national sovereignty and independence, we can persecute them. It doesn't matter about their individual rights. So you see why a lot of human rights have been violating in North Korea. And this happens not just within North Korean territory. My research focused on those who actually defected from North Korea and living in UK. Even in the UK, they live with the fear because the kind of surveillance happening in North Korea continues to happen outside North Korea. So, people cannot be relaxed and they just feel like it's not just the government, but also their friends or people in the neighborhood, they are still monitoring them. So this is the kind of reality and the fear people have to live with. So I want to just talk a little bit about implications of, this kind of ideologies and the official version of human rights. So obviously, it has implications for economy. So North Korea, even though Kim Jong-un proposed this Pyeongjin policy that he wanted to develop military as well as economy, in fact, there are two separate kind of economic system in North Korea. One is called the royal court economy. So that is the economy, it's a secret kind of economic system that is designed to basically support the elite. So they use a whole range of army of people to bring cash to the Kim dynasty using illicit kind of means. So one of the things is, their infringement of cybersecurity, but also a whole range of forced labor they are doing by sending a lot of North Korean people to overseas, by controlling their movement. So, and then also they are involved in production of drugs and tobaccos, and there's a whole range of things going on here. But also if you look at actually food situation, North Korea has remained, world's poorest countries, amongst also Asia's poorest countries, that cannot provide basic kind of food security to people. And the other issue is some of these causes of economic kind of stagnation and poor development was related to COVID-19, which has affected all of us. But because of the border closure, they were heavily relying on the transactions and the support from China, which they couldn't get it. So that really affected. But also now North Korea has quite limited arable kind of land, but also they are very much influenced by climate-related disasters. So that really affects their production. And the other thing is, as you probably know about the international sanctions imposed on North Korean government because of their kind of nuclear weapons development, as well as illegal kind of activities they've been doing, but also very much isolationist kind of economic policy. Only they are heavily rely on China and some aspects of their business with some African countries, but also Russia, as you probably heard about it. So all of these factors have had a quite significant impact on North Korean economy. Having said that, by 2024, they've been sort of slightly recovering from the impact of COVID-19, and their economy is doing maybe slightly better, but still there are a number of related serious issues. But some of the development, as I mentioned earlier, about telecommunications, IT sectors, but the downside of this kind of development is they are not really using this kind of development to improve people's lives. But what they're doing is, sadly, they're using this kind of development to bring illegal means, to bring cash to the government and to the elite, but also the advanced technology has been deployed to actually survey and monitor people even more. So less and less people are able to actually escape North Korea now because of this kind of advanced surveillance. I already mentioned about the human rights violations. I don't have enough time to go all, in terms of issues around human rights violations. But one thing I just want to give you some examples of food shortages. So, World Food Program 2024 report indicates about the consistent issues around food shortages and how it creates about 40% of its population, total population, is malnourished. But also the other issue is stunting experienced by children. About 18% of children are stunted because of, malnourishment. And then obviously agricultural production is short of their basic needs because of number of factors as I mentioned. And one of the key issues is more and more increasing issues around climate-related disasters. So these are the kind of, some examples of human rights violations. And that if you're interested, you can have a look at my book on North Korean women and defection, human rights violations and activism. I want to just move on to the last part of my presentation about then what is the sustainable and sort of the future of North Korea? And I think environmental and economic sustainability is really significant for the survival of North Korea, but also especially based on more humane kind of future of North Korea. And North Korean government themselves at itself is actually recognizing importance of environmental sustainability, and they've been kind of adapting the Sustainable Development Goal, the 17 goals, fit into their government. So there is some kind of positive sign that government is recognizing the significance, also benefits of environmental sustainability, and it is trying to work around it. So there is a good sort of a sign, and they try to work with other countries in terms of improving that environmental sustainability. Having said that, I think there is a sort of quite significant questions around their kind of philosophical approaches and the founding kind of ideologies. I would like to end my presentation with 4 ingredients I believe that will help more sustainable and humane future for North Korea. So in my book, I propose this concept called altruistic political imagination. And for me, our imaginative creativity and the utopian vision is really important in terms of making significant changes in our future. And I think we are in many ways at a critical juncture in terms of our democracy, but also future of humanity. And I think this also applies to North Korean cases. So one thing I would say is North Korea need to think about really human-centered kind of development to improve the well-being of citizens. And the other aspect is taking more deep ecological perspective. When I talked about deep ecological, this is coming from Norwegian philosopher Naes, who talked about how we position ourselves in relation to the ecology and ecosystem. Are we seeing ourselves as a dominator, or are we seeing as a part of the ecosystem? I think we should see ourselves, and North Korea should see themselves as part of the ecosystem. And the other thing is they need to have sort of a bottom-up mobilization. People are so suppressed to do anything at the moment, but there might be a point where people feel like they've had enough and they might come together. And the last component is international community. Without the right role and support of international community, beyond the political, geopolitical power game, North Korea's future will be in question. So all of these 4 components should come together to actually aid sustainable and humane future of North Korea. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your insights. I wonder, are there any questions? Okay, we have 2.
I'm wondering how important are these 3 aspects of independence, Charip, Shaju, Chavi. How important are they for regular people, regular dwellers? Or is it more of a governmental framework for like decades and decades of development, like 10, 20-year plan? Why I'm asking is because from the outside, it's kind of obvious that this national mythology is falling apart. There is a dependence, both political, economical. Do people see it? From example of Russia, we see how propaganda can basically combine 2 almost schizophrenic ideas together, like Christian Orthodox and Stalinism and Leninism.
Yeah.
But also imagine a person that's holding icon of some saint from Orthodox Church, a portrait of Stalin, and carries an iPhone in their pocket. Yeah. And information control, suppression, and propaganda can do wonders, like quote-unquote wonders. So again, back to my question, this independence, is it a governmental framework, or it really resonates with people, and that's why they support the development of government?
I would say it is much more actually related to what the government wanted to frame it. Because if you actually think about how North Korea came into power, it is extremely insecure because there is no basis in terms of democratic support. That's why they're using all this kind of cultural mechanism to maintain their power because they feel so insecure. So in terms of three components of taking this independence, actually how that is translated into people, I don't think that is that significant in terms of individual perspectives. So it is more from a government perspective to maintain their own power of a small minority of elite groups, in my view. In terms of how the kind of whole mythology kind of operates in North Korea, surprisingly, yes, from outsiders, it's obvious. All this kind of myth is all kind of made up stories. But if you are actually brainwashed, even before you are born, you really believe in all sorts of crazy stories. And I've heard from my participants, they saying, even they came out of North Korea, when they arrived China, some people give them videotapes and books to read about North Korean leaders and their kind of realities. They wouldn't believe it immediately. They were like, oh, you are trying to kind of, deceive me. But actually, they started to realize it takes a really long time. However, at the same time, there are lots of now infiltration of foreign information. So people start to see other countries and the different realities. So that's when people start to ask questions. So I think North Korea needs more infiltration of foreign information to be able to break down those kind of belief in mythologies, and that will start something, and then there might be the kind of driving force for people to come together, bottom up. That's how I believe.
Fantastic presentation. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. On that last point, do you have any tips or methods that you find particularly helpful for grassroots mobilization?
I think, as I said, for me, you need to have a vision. And I think that it's because whatever you do, whether it's a grassroots organization, whatever you do, you need that vision to actually guide you. But at the same time, you also have to have that kind of practical abilities to make it work in reality. Because sometimes what I see is the kind of chasm between reality and ideology. So being able to work around your ideology in a practical terms to make it work. And one of the key things would be you work together collectively with other people. Obviously, one of the things you're trying to do in this kind of conference is creating that kind of a bottom-up network, isn't it? And to sort of challenge the dominant power. And I think, working together with other people, looking at the vision, but also being practical about what is feasible, what is not. And I think that would help a lot of people to be able to achieve what they want to achieve.
Thank you so much again for joining us, sharing insights. Unfortunately, we are out of time, so maybe we can have a little discussion.
Thank you so much.
Somewhere. But thank you.